First episode begins with June. After going on the run, she hopes to finally escape the shadow of Gilead. However, she just lost her husband, and her friends remain in Canada while she boards a train to Alaska. However, she finds herself face to face with the woman who helped facilitate the movement behind Gilead, with Serena Joy staring at her. How she handles the next few days will determine her future. June and Serena ride on the train west together. June takes care of both babies, Noah and Nicole, while Serena uses the restroom, but June returns shortly after. June admits that she was run over by Gilead the day before, but she does not want Serena's help. When she relents, June falls asleep and struggles to find Serena with Nicole. Even when she does, June remains distrustful of Serena. Regardless of trust, Serena fetches a doctor to care for June's wounds. Nick gets brought back to his home in handcuffs, where Rose, his wife, watches him from the porch. She returns inside, and the High Commander comes out to talk with Nick. He reminds the young commander that there is still time for him to reconcile with his daughter. He leaves to catch the other commanders on a golf course. June returns from calling Moira and reveals that Luke has been arrested and sent to jail. The train will not go to Vancouver because the Canadian authorities will be overrun with more refugees. Serena knows that she cannot make up for what came before, but she owes June for everything. Moira speaks with Mark Tuello about Luke's arrest, but Mark has bad news. To normalize relations with Gilead, the Canadian government may need to stop helping what remains of the United States government. They'll need old Americans to step in to help disrupt Gilead, and Moira volunteers to help. June and Serena speak with other women about their experiences in Gilead. June tells the group about Hannah, making Serena listen to the story for the first time. Other women speak about working at Jezebel's and the beatings they received from men. The doctor who treated June pulls her aside, ostensibly to check her sutures, but really to whisper her that Serena is a war criminal traveling under false papers, and an official is on the way to come get her. "Just promise me that we will keep her baby safe," June says back evenly, but the doctor doesn't answer. Instead, he asks Serena if he can look at Noah, and as he examines the boy, he calmly lets Mrs. Waterford know that he recognizes her from when she and Fred visited the Gilead Fertility Center where he worked. He eventually hands the baby back to Serena, but not before outing her to the entire car. The women, understandably, get angry. June tries to de-escalate the situation by telling everyone that police are on their way to arrest Serena, which terrifies the new mom. "If I am arrested in Canada, they will give Noah back to the Wheelers, and I will never see him again. June, please help me," she pleads. So June does step in, which Serena sees as her cue to start spouting off about how before Gilead, America was full of whores. Unsurprisingly, Serena does not shut up, going on about how the refugees' missing children weren't taken, but saved. Things don't get any better when the police officer finally arrives, examines Serena's papers, and determines that they're legit, leaving her to the whim of the increasingly violent assembly. June steps in once more and begs the man to arrest Serena, knowing that doing so will keep her and Noah safe. But he won't because his wife was sent to the colonies and his son died, and he wants Serena to receive every single molecule of bad stuff coming her way. The doctor helps clear the children from the car, and then the vengeance-seeking crowd descends upon Serena, who still got Noah strapped to her chest in a carrier. That doesn't get in the way of their shoving her around, and when June realizes that she can't stop what's about to happen, she begs Serena to hand her the infant. But the stubborn commander's widow won't, so June does the only thing she can think of. She pulls the emergency brake, and the train screeches to a halt. She manages to pull Serena to the space between cars and barricade the door, but the angry mob immediately starts beating at the glass. The only chance Serena and her son have at survival is to jump from the train into the dark night, but she won't do it. So June makes the hard choice like she always has to. And when the throng breaks the glass as the train starts to chug back to life, she pushes her former mistress off the train. The following day, the train arrives in Alaska, where a flag with 2 stars flies. June walks into town, where she finds a new refugee camp for herself and baby Nicole to stay. To her surprise, one of the nurses in the town is her mother, Holly. The two reunite and hug. Second episode, named Exile, begins with Serena waking up in the woods. She discovers that Noah was unharmed by the fall from the train. She finds a church, believing this is a sign from God. A woman shows and asks if she needs help, eventually bringing her to a religious commune called Canaan. Serena is still in Canada, and these guys very welcoming to refugees. There's only women and children that live in this place, and introducing herself, Serena decides to change her name to Rachel. June awakens inside her mum, Holly's house. Her arm seems to be getting better, and she remains steadfast in her role to try and save all the other handmaids, and by extension, Hannah. As for Holly, she was dragged out of her apartment in the past, tried in court, and eventually sent to the colonies. She wound up putting her doctor skills to good use there, though, working to take care of the aunts and the guardians. They kept her prisoner and killed all her friends in the process. But through all of this, she held on with the faith that she'd be reunited with June once more. So how did she escape? Well, the army liberated her colony about 6 months back. She got sent to Alaska, but since moving there, she's had no internet, and they're pretty cut off from everybody. They get 5 minutes a week at the public phones, and whilst there, she called every refugee agency and heard nothing. The camp was only meant to be temporary, but given the number of refugees coming in, it was eventually made to be a permanent way station for other areas. The wait lists are long, though, but Holly stayed here with the hopes of seeing June and Hannah again. Meanwhile, Luke is reunited with Moira and Mark after being allowed to leave the station, with word that June has got to Alaska. Mark is working on expediting his hearing, but this could take 4 months. He's stuck in Toronto for the time being and can't get out until this is over. Luke is angsty to get moving and do something, but Mayday already are. They're moving on the commanders who shot down the planes and intend to kill them all, gathering what intel they can before striking. Nick shows up to see Lawrence, who's adamant that he was not behind June being hit with the truck. However, his idea for New Bethlehem is a big hit with those in Gilead, and they have a long waiting list to get in. Nick is not alone here, though, as his new father-in-law, Commander Gabriel Wharton, is also along for the ride. We saw him briefly last episode, and he comes up with the idea of using Serena to welcome the citizens back home. He's concerned because despite being their global ambassador, they haven't heard from Serena in a while. Well, Nick decides to double his efforts to try and find her, but as we know, he's also working as a mole with Mark. The pair meet, where Mark hands over an encrypted phone and gives orders to pass over the schedule of Gilead patrols in No Man's Land. In the midst of this, Rita decides to entertain the idea of going to New Bethlehem. She believes they may have a lead on her sister, but Moira doesn't think it's a good move. However, June rings, and she manages to speak to the group, updating on current affairs. We then cut forward 2 months later. Serena is still at the faith commune, where the leader admits that she knew who Serena was the minute she showed up. She's actually read her book and urges Serena to set things right, given is watching her. Well, that he happens to be Lawrence, as it turns out, and he shows to take her back to Gilead, specifically back to New Bethlehem. He alludes to her initial vision, pointing out that New Bethlehem is kinder and gentler, the perfect place to see her religious vision in all its glory. He wants her to be the face of the Reformed community and promises her independence too. If she refuses, well, the eyes know exactly where she is and could swoop in and take Noah from her. That's the implication, at least, because Lawrence tells her it's only a matter of time before that intel extends out to the Wheelers. So naturally, Serena is going back to New Bethlehem. June is up in Alaska hanging out too. She's struggling to get through to Luke, though. Why? Well, when she rings Mark, she finds out that Luke has volunteered to join Mayday and fight back. Unfortunately, he and Moira are now stuck in No Man's Land, thanks to some impromptu patrols showing up, forcing them to remain rooted and hidden. That is, if they're even still alive. As for Nick, he's conflicted over what choices to make and whether to help Mark or embrace his new life with Rosie. He obviously thinks the whole plan is futile, especially when Mark mentions how Mayday are just a bunch of civilians coming together to fight. In the end, he makes his choice and throws the SIM card from the burner in the fire that night. With Wharton breathing down his neck and his faith in the rebellion waning, that's not good news for June. When she finds out about the Mayday operation, she works to try and contact Nick. She believes he'll respond to her, but Holly is not so sure. She urges June to reconsider, believing the whole thing is a setup and a trap. As they fight, June lashes out and calls Holly out for abandoning her. Holly has been trying to save her, and now that they're reunited, June is about to leave again, which is tearing her apart. However, June does eventually compromise, deciding to leave Nicole with her, pointing out that her real name is Holly, named after her mum. So after all of that, both Serena and June are heading back after all, each with their own crusade and personal demons to overcome. Serena arrives in New Bethlehem with Noah, and the bright new houses contrast beautifully with June's return to the rebellion group of Mayday, who are holed up in an abandoned, dingy house. June turns to the group of rebels here and tells them they need to bring them home. Third episode, named Devotion, begins as June remembers the last time her family was together, at Hannah's baptism. However, she's broken from her thoughts by Mark. She asks why Mark used Luke and Moira, and Mark reveals they volunteered for the mission. Nick has also been incommunicado, but Mark thinks it makes sense with foreign dignitaries visiting New Bethlehem. Nick and Lawrence discuss the need to reshape the international opinions of Gilead. They are interrupted when a German supervisor who oversees New Bethlehem. When Lawrence leaves, the supervisor delivers a message. June Osborne is at mile marker 17. Waiting in the woods, June hears a car pull up to her meeting space. Nick gets out of a car, and the two run to embrace each other. After June tells Nick their daughter is safe, she asks Nick to move the other Gilead troops nearby, but he realizes it is impossible. However, he can go pick up Luke and Moira. Nick tells June to stay, but eventually he agrees for her to come with him. Lawrence meets with Serena, and the two discuss the upcoming foreign dignitaries' visits. Serena is not sure they can change Gilead, but Lawrence remains confident. She tells him to show his devotion to God by praying in front of her, and eventually he relents. While she pressures him to show more faith, Lawrence thinks his more practical approach will help them remake the country. She agrees to assist him in his mission. Aunt Lydia waits outside a bunker for another aunt to open a steel door. When the other aunt arrives, she invites Lydia into the structure. Once inside, Lydia sees a room full of sin and debauchery, where drugs and sex run rampant. Lydia calls out to Janine, and they speak about how Gilead betrayed the handmaidens after they bore children. Instead, they were sent to this brothel, and Janine tells the aunt to forget her. Serena follows Lawrence as he guides a tour through town. Serena meets with High Commander Wharton. He compliments her appearance and tells her they are blessed that she returned to Gilead. When one of the other ambassadors from another country questions Gilead's devotion to human rights, Serena steps up to speak about what New Bethlehem means for the future. Serena sways the other delegates when they see Noah and other pregnant women in the town. They open the idea of allowing repatriation to occur under the eye of the United Nations. Wharton thanks her for selling New Bethlehem for Gilead. Nick and June arrive at the water park to find survivors and check the pickup location. They cautiously walk through the park, and June questions his decision to play both sides of the conflict. He tells her it was after he visited her in the hospital, after she was hit by the truck. Nick questions what he is doing by helping June when she chose Luke. She tells Nick that Luke waited for her, but she still loves Nick anyway. Even so, she cannot lose Luke and Moira. Nick tells June that is how he feels about her, but agrees to help her. Holed up in a gift shop, Luke and Moira discuss their situation. They're frustrated by the situation, and Luke is angry that everything went sideways. Moira tells Luke he's the best man she knows, but their conversation ends when they hear a noise outside. They take cover and suddenly hear June's voice call out through the shop. Nick meets Luke and Moira for the first time, and he hurries them out of the gift shop. On their way back to the car, they are stopped by a Gilead patrol. Nick tells everyone to get in the car and walks up to the patrol. After they tell Nick they will need to report the rebel activity, he shoots the two patrolmen and drives the group away. In New Bethlehem, Serena and Lawrence make a pitch to expand New Bethlehem as needed. Commander Wharton tells them he will consider it and asks why Nick is not home. Lawrence covers for him, telling the group that he sent Nick on a mission along the border. Back at his home, Lawrence wants to celebrate, but instead finds Aunt Lydia. She is here to beg for Janine to return and work for Commander Lawrence and Naomi, but the commander's wife refuses to bring her back. Lawrence tells Aunt Lydia that Janine was lucky not to be sent to the colonies. Lydia reminds him that Janine bore him a child, but Lawrence still refuses. In the woods, June, Moira, and Luke meet with Mark. He promises to expose Nick if he does not honor their agreement, but Nick knows that he is no use to Mark if he's dead, and if Mark exposes him, he will be killed. June and Nick say goodbye once again, but she refuses to call it a final farewell. He watches her as she walks back towards her husband. Fourth episode begins as June waits in the base of operations for the U.S. team while Luke plans a bombing in Gilead. June tries to contribute, but he brushes her off. Mark joins them, telling them that Luke's case is dismissed and they'll be sent back to Alaska. While June is happy, Luke seems frustrated that he cannot continue to work with the team in Canada. Angela approaches Lawrence with a drawing, and he compliments the little girl's drawing. Mrs. Lawrence pushes the girl out of the room and tells Commander Lawrence he looks nice. She expects him to be more virile if he's going to be a high commander, and he reminds her that power is through control. Luke approaches June, telling her that he is not going home. He wants to stay behind and fight like June once did. She does not trust the current soldiers here and thinks Luke will not be safe working for them. He continues to be angry and walks off to check the intel they gathered. In New Bethlehem, Rita reunites with her sister. While she waits, Serena Joy asks her if she'd be open to resettling back in New Bethlehem, but she seems uninterested. Meanwhile, Lawrence becomes a high commander through the ceremony conducted with Wharton. Afterward, there is a celebration at Jezebel's. Lawrence attends with another commander. In Canada, the intel briefing from Mayday goes poorly. After they thank June for helping Luke and Moira return safely, they plan to attack Jezebel's. June worries about the women of the brothel being caught in the firefight, and Moira offers to take on the mission so she can scope out the location. Moira readies for the mission, but June tries to talk her out of it. Moira does not believe she can go back to a normal life. However, their conversation is interrupted when Janine's picture comes across the intel. Wharton and Serena Joy speak back at Rose and Nick's house. Serena Joy offers him pie, and they speak about the past. However, the future of Gilead seems bright to Wharton, partly because of her collaboration with Lawrence. Wharton believes Serena Joy should have been lifted up, not subdued by her husband. At Jezebel's, Janine finishes a drink and is told by a cruel commander to act like a cat. He wants to control her, and to do that, he wants her to sleep with Commander Lawrence. In the bedroom, Lawrence tells Janine they will not be doing anything. He instead tells her that he tried to help her. He then shows the picture Angela drew him, and they discuss the girl. Nick walks downstairs and meets with Rita. She pushes him to answer questions about New Bethlehem and whether it is actually safe for them to stay. When Nick says yes, Rita agrees to wait until her family can all be brought back to New Bethlehem. June approaches the Mayday planners and tells them to send her to Jezebel's instead of Moira. They agree because June has connections in Gilead. Afterward, Moira yells at June for trying to pull her off the mission. Luke agrees, telling June she wants to fight but is acting like she does not. He will deliver his bombs as a way to fight for Hannah. Lawrence reads Angela a book that he used to read to his other children. Janine remains at Jezebel's, applying makeup in a mirror. Commander Wharton walks Serena Joy home and tells her about a time they met in Washington. At the time, he was attracted to her, but she was already with Commander Waterford. He offers to dance with her now, and while they do, Aunt Lydia approaches. June stands by a railing, looking over the valley, and Luke comes over to talk to her about the mission. He thinks they should work together on the mission and save Hannah in the process. June is worried their plan will not work and that she is trying to get everyone back to Alaska. She thought they could be a family there, but ever since they lost Hannah, they've been broken. He understands, but he's thankful they're together again. Even if the plan does not work, they need to save her. Fifth episode opens with June and Moira, dressed in disguises as Marthas. They get into the back of a box truck. Before they're hidden in a secret compartment, June and Luke kiss. In Gilead, Commander Wharton questions Nick about the incident at the border with the 2 dead soldiers. Wharton tells Nick the second soldier may actually survive, and Nick thanks God. Aunt Lydia and Serena Joy discuss the future of the Handmaids. Lydia chastises Serena for not considering the Handmaids' needs after they have accomplished Gilead's goal of forced procreation. Serena thinks that when handmaids retire, they should work at a new birthing center as attendants. That way, they keep their brand associated with fertility. While they speak, Serena Joy receives flowers from Wharton, and Lydia encourages her to date him so they can gain more political power. Moira and June hide under masks and walk into the back of Jezebel's. June wanders through the dressing rooms and showers looking for Janine. As they search, they discover the commanders are inbound, with Commander Bell showing an affinity for Janine. They go up to the penthouse to find her. Inside the penthouse, girls cry and drink as they prepare for their customers. June and Moira pretend to clean until Janine spots them. They quickly exchange words and plan to meet later when the commanders arrive. June and Moira start to leave when Bell spills champagne. He starts pushing June to clean up his mess, threatening to sexually assault her, until Lawrence tells him to stop. While June tries to hide her face, Lawrence seems to realize there's something different about this Martha. Nick walks through the hospital until he meets the family of Toby, the guardian he shot while helping June escape. He gives Toby's mother an option to leave and check on her other son. Toby asks for more blankets, and when Nick tries to get more information, Toby asks about his dog. At first, Nick seems okay with the answer, but has second thoughts before he leaves. He returns to the hospital room, locking the door. Lawrence is praised by the other commanders as he discusses New Bethlehem's role in normalizing relations. Janine plows Belle with more drinks, and she flirts with Lawrence in front of Belle. When Belle gets angry, he gets into a verbal fight with Lawrence. After Lawrence tells Belle that no one respects him, he walks to the back room with Janine. She shows him the peepholes through which the girls sneak a look into the parlor they just left. This allows Lawrence to overhear Belle's plan to put the new High Commander on the wall after Gilead destroys New Bethlehem. This is all a ploy to capture those who escaped the country before. Moira and June wait for Janine. June is surprised Lawrence was upstairs, but Moira calls her naive. When Janine arrives, they run through the plan. All the women need to be downstairs when Mayday hits so they can take out the commanders. She hands off letters from the girls just in case and tells Moira they have shivs ready to help fight back. She also relays that the commanders use a secret elevator with the codes for the elevator and the infor for how often the Guardians switch out. June tries to get Janine to come with her, but Janine cannot leave without the other girls. After Janine leaves, Moira grows angry with June. Moira thinks she looks bad for not offering to save Janine, even though her disappearance would destroy the plan in place. When June tries to tell Moira that she went through hell with Janine, Moira accuses her of being selfish. Moira then reminds June that she was a Jezebel girl. They stop debating who had it worse because it only empowers Gilead. Before they leave, they are joined by a guardian. He sees the written notes and tells them they can retrieve their material once they comply with his request. He shoves Moira on the bed to rape her, but they're able to kill him before he can call for help. They need to hide the body. Serena Joy meets with Commander Wharton at the library. When they speak positively about their experiences together, Wharton tells her to look over his plans. Inside the drawings, he makes it clear he wants to marry her. At first, she declines, but he wants her to be the confident version of herself. He thinks they can build a strong family and a bright future for Gilead. She accepts his proposal, and they kiss. June and Moira wander the halls with the laundry. Inside, the body of the guardian bleeds through. Luke pulls up the truck to Jezebel's, but a guardian is at the door. Even though June and Moira dispose of the body in a furnace, the alarm goes off when the guardian is missing. Outside, Luke gets hit by the man on the loading dock. As they hide in the garage, June spots Lawrence getting into his car. She steps in front of him, revealing her face. He tries to leave, but she begs him to help. Lawrence agrees, putting them in the trunk so he can drive away. Sixth episode begins as June worries about the women at Jezebel's because of the letters. Moira points out that the letters are at least in a safe, while the two women are stuck in a trunk going to an unknown place. The car pulls over, and Lawrence opens the trunk. He asks her why she's back in Gilead, and they eventually blame each other for the events of the past. Lawrence remains guilty over the death of his wife and wonders why he built the hellhole they live in now. Lawrence reveals that the Warhawk commanders want him strung up on the wall. June trusts him, telling Lawrence he will be the most powerful commander in Boston in a week. Lawrence sneaks June and Moira into his house, but they're almost found out when Naomi goes down the stairs. He tells them they need to kill all of the commanders, or more will sprout like hydras. They agree, but when they tell Lawrence they need to get into Jezebel's to recover the letters, he cannot help. He can get them back across the border if they leave now. June asks for his phone and calls Nick. Before he answers the phone, Nick is reliving the death of the guardian he killed in the hospital. When the phone rings, he answers and agrees to help. He then recovers the letters, but tells June to have Lawrence take Moira back. Nick needs to see June one more time. As he leaves the office in Jezebel's, he's interrupted by Commander Bell. Thanks to Janine, she is able to help him avoid any further questions. Nick meets up with June and asks her to stay until the morning. He tells her it will be safer, and while she knows something is wrong, she agrees to stay. Nick imagines the night they will spend together. He also flashes back to a night when June was a handmaid and they spent the night in the attic. They imagine their potential first dates together. Aunt Lydia waits for Janine in the Jezebel's dressing room. Lydia tells her the good news about the proposal to move the Handmaids to a fertility clinic in New Bethlehem. But Janine laughs. Her only way out is death or the end of Gilead. She would leave if her daughter could be returned, and then she would blame Lydia for stealing her daughter. Lydia slaps Janine, causing Janine to throw her out of the dressing room. When June and Nick arrive back at his house, he sees the shadow of Commander Wharton in the window. Nick tells June to hide and potentially go to Serena Joy's house if he doesn't return shortly. Upstairs, Wharton confronts Nick about being at Jezebel's and about his proximity to the guardian who died. Wharton grows angry, unsure what Nick has done. He threatens Nick with the wall unless Nick is honest. After 5 minutes, June leaves the car and goes to Serena's against her better judgment. Serena lets her in and asks questions about June's arrival. She lies to Serena, telling her that she came to Gilead to try to get Nick to return to Alaska with her. Serena tells June that she put Nick in an uncomfortable position, but June reminds her of why she fell for Nick in the first place. Serena begins to compare their suffering, and June shuts it down. That night, Serena reveals to June that she is engaged to Commander Wharton. June thinks Serena is falling into the same patterns, and Serena believes June is trying to break up a marriage. They continue to fight until June wishes she could get rid of Serena. The next morning, Serena makes June breakfast. When she steps outside to the hall, June is reunited with Rita. Serena and June continue to fight, with Rita caught off guard. When Serena goes to check on her baby, Rita reveals that she stayed in New Bethlehem to stay with her sister. June asks if she would be interested in helping Mayday, but Rita tells her no. Lawrence plays chess with Angela, but Naomi wants her stepdaughter to attend an art lesson. Lawrence brushes it off, telling her it will not be necessary for his daughter. June discovers Serena's journal and grows worried about its contents. However, she's interrupted when Nick arrives and tells her they're going to Paris. June is confused and tells him she cannot leave her family. He insists that she's the only one he loves. However, A knock at Serena's door causes them to run and hide. Serena answers the door and lets in Commander Wharton. She suggests they go for a walk, but Wharton is eager to share the good news with her. He has uncovered a plan, with Nick's help, to blow up Jezebel's. This alone was enough for him to shut down the club for good. June stares at Nick as they're stuck in the closet, and slowly the camera zooms out, leaving her alone. 7th episode begins as June and Nick, still trapped in the closet, marinate in his betrayal. The women of Jezebel's are startled by guardians busting into their dressing room and roughly moving them into the corner of the space that doubles as a bathroom. At the last minute, one of the guardians singles Janine out and has her separated from the group. As the rest of the women are corralled into the shower stalls and killed by a machine gun at close range, Janine is hauled away screaming in horror. Serena eventually succeeds in getting High Commander Wharton to go on a walk with her and Noah, leaving the house empty. "Your friend was taken, but I'll find out where," he says of Janine. "He wanted the whole place gone," he continues, adding that he never said the girls had anything to do with the plot. When June asks if all of the women are dead, all Nick can say is, "I didn't think he would do that." He takes her back to the brothel. Along the way, she suddenly opens the car door and demands to get out. "You never cared what I did unless it helped you," he calls as he hustles to catch up to her. "I killed those 2 guardians to protect you and your friend and your husband, and those men were just doing those job. One of them was 19 years old." She points out that he's just like all the men in Gilead, giving up others in order to save himself. "And you love me." He counters, "So what does that make you?" The minute it's out of his mouth, he knows it's too much. He calls her name, but she says don't, and keeps walking. He doesn't follow. At some point after the massacre, Aunt Lydia arrives at Jezebel's. She weeps as she surveys the shattered dressing room, holding Charlotte's drawing to her chest. June returns to Mayday headquarters, where Luke and Co. are trying to find out what went wrong. "Nick told them," she says, and it's not long before Luke realizes who told Nick. He says the only thing Nick ever cared about was June, and because of that, you're going to run around like he's some hero, too. She gasps out that she doesn't know what to do. "Don't be in love with a fucking Nazi," Luke yells, also on the verge of crying. Then he walks back to the rest of the Mayday gang, who pretend that they weren't eavesdropping the whole time. "I trusted him for so long, I forgot who he was," June tells Moira, who finds her later. "He never gave you any reason not to trust him," Moira reasons. "And he was kind to you. He helped you survive. I mean, you'd be dead if it weren't for him." When June gets a minute alone with her husband, things are still real rough. She makes it clear that she loves him. "I want you to be happy, and I want you to be with someone that deserves you," but that she doesn't want him to stay with her out of pity or obligation. "I should want to leave you," he admits, "but I can't." She wonders if Hannah is the only reason they're still together, and Luke thinks for a minute, but then shakes his head no and gently reaches for her hand. When Rita finds Nick later to ask if June got out okay, she waves away his assertion that June thinks he's a monster. The commander's wives throw Serena a bridal shower that doubles as a teal-dressed interrogation. They're sure that New Bethlehem is godless, and they want Serena to give them the scoop. No, that's not exactly true. They want Serena to say things that will make them feel superior and righteous. She doesn't give it to them. As the wives parrot their husbands' thoughts on the settlement, Serena interrupts. "What do you say? What are your thoughts and dreams for Gilead's future?" Unsurprisingly, they have none, or at least none that they feel safe to share. Serena moves on, bringing up her work with the fertility center and how it will employ handmaids. As the wives scoff and speak demeaningly of the women they've helped their husbands rape for years, Serena finds herself in a position to which she is unaccustomed. Handmaid advocate. "Where would you suggest that they spend their retirement?" she asks. Naomi foists that responsibility onto the commanders, then steers the conversation elsewhere. At home, she grouses to High Commander Wharton that the wives don't respect her. Then she suggests that a proper wedding would do a lot toward proving them wrong. They make plans for a grand celebration that invites the whole community, including handmaids. Aunt Lydia returns to the Red Center bereft, and she has no time for Aunt Phoebe. But that doesn't change Phoebe's sunny attitude about the good news she has to share. Commander Bell and his wife want a handmaid, and he wants it to be Janine, whom he rescued from the Jezebel's killings. The news that Janine is alive nearly brings Lydia to her knees in relief. Her joy is short-lived, though. When she brings Janine's new robes to the Bell house, Commander Bell refers to Janine as a firecracker and won't let Aunt Lydia see her. He also says she won't be at the wedding because she's not suitable for public view. As Lydia leaves, she sees a beaten and bruised Janine waving from an upstairs window. June is on the verge of having a very private, very major breakdown when a car carrying Lawrence and Tuello pulls up to Mayday's base. "I always thought you were an idiot for trusting him," Lawrence tells her. "But remember, he's surlier than normal because the commanders he thought were going to be gone by now are still in play and seriously hate him. I want you to get these people to find another way to kill those commanders like you promised," he says. June says she can't help him, but her interest is piqued when he mentions Serena's wedding and the handmaids that will be there. She and Lawrence outline it for Ellen, the Mayday leader, and Luke. While Serena is busy micromanaging every detail of her wedding, and while the commanders are busy resting on their laurels for the Jezebel's massacre, it'll be the perfect situation for an attack led by the handmaids. The bones of a plan are barely out of June's mouth, and Moira is on board to return with her. June and Moira will smuggle weapons in. And also, the bombs are still in place. Would be a shame not to use them, Luke offers. And when the chaos breaks out all over the city, Lawrence posits, Tuello can have the American military invade. As June voiceovers about how they're going to use all of our friends in the plan, we see Lawrence get a case from Tuello, then hand it off to Rita. Inside are vials of white powder. And guess what? Rita is making the cake for Serena's wedding, after all. "They will never see us coming," a re-energized June says. For his part, Lawrence has Aunt Lydia sent to Washington, D.C. for the day, ostensibly to talk to higher-ups about handmaids' roles in the new Bethlehem Fertility Center. She tries to postpone because she doesn't want to miss the wedding, but he says she must go right that minute. Outside, Aunt Phoebe has a guardian check out a small hole in the fence surrounding the Red Center, and when he's stepped away, she opens the trunk of Lawrence's car to find June crouched inside. "Blessed be the fruit," she whispers. "Let the revolution begin." Phoebe sneaks June and Moira inside the building and briefs them. The handmaids and Marthas are on board, and Janine doesn't know what's going on because Belle won't let her out of the house. "I'll take care of it," June says quickly. Phoebe stashes them in the basement, then unexpectedly runs into Aunt Lydia just as she arrives upstairs. Lydia is suspicious of the younger aunt, who bids her a safe trip to D.C. and bustles along her way. Downstairs, Moira is a little more shaken than she expected, and she asks June to say something leaderish. So June recites the 23rd Psalm, adding at the end, "And please, dear God, give us the strength to murder those goddamn motherfuckers." 8th episode begins as we watch Econo women dyeing and sewing new red robes for the handmaids. "They wanted us to look like we'd been dipped in blood. Some fairy tale figure in a red cloak," June voiceovers. Moira and June then sew knives into the finished garments, which are then distributed among the women living at the Red Center. Then she and Moira get dressed and join the handmaids at the Red Center, gently touching the women's hands in solidarity as they step into formation. The massive sanctuary eventually fills with the rest of the commanders, their wives and handmaids. Nick escorts Rose to her seat, then stands on the altar where he'll officiate. Wharton arrives next, and then it's time for the bride's big entrance. Serena wears a pale blue, long-sleeved gown with butterflies adorning the train. As Nick begins the ceremony, the handmaids who have blades sewn into their robes surreptitiously remove them and pass them, hand to hand, down the pew. One woman accidentally drops her blade. The clattering draws the attention of the guardian nearby, but the weapon is scooted under the bench, and no one sees anything. Wharton and his new missus enter and take to the dance floor. While everyone's attention is on the couple, the handmaids continue their work of making sure everyone wearing a white bonnet has her own personal death stick. Serena takes a victory lap around the room, reassuring Lawrence that she's still committed to their new Bethlehem goals before making sure to greet my most important guests, the handmaids. She asks them to gather. June and Moira quickly slip toward the rear of the crowd as the new Mrs. Wharton reassures them that she's working on their behalf in New Bethlehem. She's about to step away, but decides she needs to sing them the ballad of Serena and June. So she turns back to tell them about her own former handmaid. I could have been kinder to her. To be honest, she could have been kinder to me, she says as June fumes in the back. It only gets worse when Serena says she counts June as a friend, and I do believe that my former handmaid forgives me. The dessert in question is a gorgeous, tiered, scarlet confection that is dosed with enough medicine to send everyone who eats it into a sleeping stupor in about 2 hours. The handmaids don't touch their pieces, obviously, and they fold it into their napkins and leave it under their benches when Aunt Phoebe tells them it's time to go. Their plan is nearly thwarted by Aunt Lydia, who returns from D.C. and swings by to congratulate the happy couple. She gets a glimpse of June in the process. The older woman starts to chase her, but June eludes her. That doesn't stop Lydia from going to Lawrence with her suspicions. "You're losing it, lady," he says, knowing full well that the bane of both of their existences is in the building. Then Aunt Phoebe joins in the gaslighting, and a befuddled Lydia is ushered away for some dinner. High Commander Wharton carries his bride into their home, and she's giddy until she sees a handmaid kneeling in the entryway. Commander Bell's dad has sent her the most fertile handmaid in Gilead as a wedding gift. "But I'm fertile," a shocked Serena replies. "But you're only one person, my love," Wharton says. Serena forbids having a handmaid in the house, but he maintains that Gabriel will help them achieve the big family they talked about. Serena tells the woman, whose real name is Christina, to run and never come back. But Wharton intercepts and wonders why the woman whose thoughts and opinions he said he admires is suddenly having thoughts and opinions about this. "I was so stupid to do this again," Serena says, crying. "I thought you were a better man, but you're just like the rest of them." He screams at her, then uses that soft and mean voice that he used on Nick a few episodes back. "I have bent to your liberal attitudes, but I will not turn my back on God," he vows. "You think God wants this abomination of a marriage?" Serena spits. Just then, Noah starts crying. Serena grabs him, muttering, "We can't stay here." A guardian blocks her exit, and Wharton forbids her to leave. "You are my wife now. Your place is in this house. You have nowhere to go." She's like, "What are you going to do? Cut off my finger or beat me with a belt?" "I will survive it, and I will survive you," she promises. He maintains he's a good man and husband. "You can't be," she whispers. "You're a commander." With hatred in his eyes, Wharton orders the guardian to step aside. Serena and Noah exit via the front door, and she runs. Aunt Lydia sits, alone, eating her meal while the reception crew cleans up and notices that the area the handmaids were sitting in has a ton of uneaten cake chucked under the benches, which were skirted. The only reason she sees is because one napkin is sticking out from the end. So she hotfoots it back to the Red Center, where Aunt Phoebe is unsuccessful in stopping her from checking on the handmaids in their beds. Everything seems to be status quo in the dormitory, until Lydia rips the covers off one woman and finds her fully dressed. Meanwhile, June and a handful of other women are out in Gilead, working to kill the commander who either didn't have handmaids or whose handmaids were not at the wedding. As she promised, our girl takes on Commander Bell, creeping into his house and finding him asleep in the living room. He rouses when the phone next to him rings. It seems like he's getting news of what's going down, but he's distracted when June audibly steps into the room. "June Osborne," he says, voice full of contempt. "Nice to meet you," she responds, then instantly slams her box cutter into his right eyeball. He's dead moments later. She sits, takes a swig of the drink he was enjoying, and breathes a minute before she hears footsteps behind her. It's Janine, who starts crying as she thanks her friend. Back at the Red Center, Aunt Lydia is screaming at the handmaids, whom she has kneeling on the floor in the center of the room, a guardian holding his gun on them. She singles out Aunt Phoebe, and it seems like she's going to make an example of her when Moira stands and tells her to stop. To add insult to Moira's continued and horrifying Gileadian injury, Lydia doesn't even know who she is. I do love that once Moira drops a couple of F-bombs, it's Aunt Lydia's clue that you're working with her. She threatens to shoot anyone who won't tell her, "Where is June Osborne?" That's when June quietly announces from behind her, "I'm right here." Lydia blames the rebellion on June, but June calmly states that you did this by mutilating and terrorizing the handmaids and taking their children away. "But I think that you've seen things you can't unsee," June says, approaching slowly, "and I think you've learned things that you can't unlearn. And I know that in your heart of hearts, you know that rape is rape, and you know it wasn't our fault, and that we don't deserve this, and we're not fallen women." The louder Lydia gets, the more hushed June gets. When Lydia storms that June shouldn't presume to know what's in God's heart, she quietly urges Lydia to ask herself, "If you think that God wants this for us." June's words are affecting Lydia, who grows tearful and trembling. Or is there a God who would empower a woman like you to stand up for us, to arc toward the light, and to finally declare, "Enough"? It's really all over when Janine walks in behind June. "If you really want to save us, let us go," she says. Lydia, whose entire world is crumbling before her, has the guardian lower his weapon. "I'm sorry he hurt you, dear," she tells Janine, who hugs her. The other women scurry out as the guardian looks on, stymied. June is the last to leave, sharing a significant look with Aunt Lydia before turning and walking out the door. Alone, Lydia slowly lowers to the floor and sobs as she implores God to help her. "The dress became our uniform," June voiceovers as the handmaids take to the streets, peeling off one by one as they pass their targets' homes, and we became an army. Ninth episode begins with Aunt Phoebe march through town to meet up with the Mayday trucks. As vehicles carrying guardians chase them, June yells for the ladies to run. Then some of the bombs that Mayday placed go off right as the guardians' cars drive by. Janine is surprised to learn that Moira and June are planning to stay in Gilead, though their truck will take everyone else past the border. Janine announces that she's staying as well because Charlotte's still here, just like Hannah. We learn that Aunt Phoebe's name is actually Ava. It's all fun and go live your lives speeches until they stop at the place they're supposed to pick up some other handmaids, and no one is there. Suddenly, an eye rips open the door and hauls everyone out, demanding that June Osborne announce her presence. He pulls another handmaid out of the group and is about to have her shot when June steps up. She's quickly carted off while the others, who have good reason to be extremely afraid, watch. "I love you," June says as she's pulled away. The Lawrences are hiding out at home when Serena comes knocking. Naomi can't understand why the new Mrs. Wharton left her husband on your wedding night, but Serena's got bigger problems. "I just saw a handmaid kill a wife in front of me," she reports. She adds that there are bombs and they have to leave for New Bethlehem, but he says they can't go. She intuits that he's got inside information and asks what's happening. "Rebellion," he says. The next morning, we get a casualty update from Naomi. The handmaids took out 37 commanders, and she called High Commander Wharton, who's waiting for her in the Lawrence's entryway. He asks her to forgive him for speaking sharply to her the night before, and tries to placate her by suggesting that they try for a child on their own. No handmaid, no ceremony, just us. He also wants her to join the other wives and children at a secure location outside of Boston, but she refuses. He asks her then to stay put at the Lawrences while he deals with those ungodly women here and then flies to Washington that evening. He also tells her that June used their wedding as an opportunity to arm the handmaids and drug the commanders, which truly stymies Serena. "I thought that we were friends," she breathes. He is condescending and patronizing in the most Wharton way possible, as he reassures Serena that June will be taken care of. Then he leaves. Wharton goes to talk with June, who is being held in a cage. He lets her out, and her first question is whether Serena was the one who exposed her. He says no, and she should had more patience with Serena's ideas for handmaid-related reforms. Patience is not an option, she says flatly. Wharton hates her. The feeling is mutual. He spouts a lot of holy babble at her, and she calls him out. Frauds, all of you, she says. It's never been about piety. It's always been about power. He mocks her for feeling powerful, but she doesn't take the bait. Before he goes, she wants him to know that my God, Serena's God, is a God of love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God. Choose love. Be the man that she believes you can be. Wharton walks away. As Naomi and Angela prepare to be taken to the secure location, a subdued Lawrence double-checks that his wife has packed the little girl's art supplies. He also gives her a book to read their daughter before bed, and exhorts Naomi to feed the smart little kiddo's hungry brain. Then Angela comes downstairs, and Lawrence hugs and kisses her goodbye, telling her he loves her. He lets Serena know that he's going to meet up with the surviving commanders to figure out what's next. She's incensed that he can just go along with things as they were. June is going to die, she says, on the verge of tears. Lawrence sincerely asks if they can pray for her, and once Serena gets over her shock, they do. In the middle of town, June is marched out on an elevated platform that has a gallows on it. Aunt Phoebe is standing under one, the noose already looped loosely around her neck. A large crowd of Econo people has gathered to watch Wharton lead a mass killing of the handmaids involved in the Red Wedding. He spouts a lot of scripture, then Aunt Lydia is marched out on stage next to June. Next, Moira, Janine, and all of the other handmaids are brought up from the truck where they're being held. He blames Lydia and offers her a chance to atone to God before she is killed. She does start to pray aloud, asking the man upstairs to have mercy on my precious girls, for they have been prisoners of wicked, godless men. June looks surprised and appreciative as Lydia is manhandled into a noose of her own. As Wharton continues to blather at June, Luke, Rita, and a bunch of others move from the back of the crowd to the front. They've got weapons. June whispers to Wharton that she wants to atone for her transgressions. He gives her the chance to speak. June apologizes for failing her friends. She prays that God protects your humble servants. Let them know their lives are worthy, and their hopes, their dreams mean something. The executioners move toward her, placing the rope over her head. Then, as she pulls at the binding around her throat, she's hauled up into the air and hanged. The moment is a catalyst for Mayday, which begins its assault with grenades launched at the Gilead vehicles near the platform. Snipers on nearby roofs start to take out the Guardians. Luke wields an automatic weapon, and he kills anyone impeding Mayday's fight. Moira and the other handmaids work to free each other from the ropes and fastenings that bind their hands. And Rita shoots and kills the man operating the crane that hanged June, reversing the mechanism, so that she falls to the platform. As the handmaids spill into the crowd, using their knives at will, Phoebe gets hold of a gun and a billy club and uses both as though she's been professionally trained. Luke makes it to the stage and ascertains that his wife is still alive, though gasping and dazed. As she stares up at the sky, American military jets scream into the picture and drop bombs on key Gilead targets. Speaking of the U.S., Serena is shocked when American soldiers storm into Lawrence's home, followed quickly by Mark Tuello. He demands to know where Lawrence has gone. Then he not roughly but also not gently grabs her arm to move her out to someplace safe. Rose wakes Nick, who's fallen asleep at his desk, to tell him something is wrong with the baby. So he's at the hospital when Mayday strikes. Everything turns out okay with Rose and their unborn child, and he reports that her father got away safely. You need to end this brazen assault, she tells him. End her. She blames her complications on the sedatives June and Mayday put in the cake. Tuello and Mayday use the Boston Globe building as their headquarters, and that's where June heads once she's changed clothes. Pretty much everyone is surprised to see her, but all June wants to know is what their next step is. We learn that Phoebe is actually a CIA agent, which explains the ease with which she wielded her weapons. She and Tuello are trying to find the extremist commanders who survived and finish the job before they do something violent in retribution. And while Lawrence may know where those men are, Tuello can't reach him. so their best bet is Serena, who's in protective custody nearby. June finds her former mistress and Noah in a church's sanctuary. She's surprised that Serena is happy that she's alive. "I need to know where the commanders are who survived," June says, and Serena lies that she doesn't know where they're meeting. June looks at her with disdain. "You're asking me to put a target on my husband's back," Serena says, but June counters that that husband tried to kill her earlier that day. "Is that the kind of father you want for your son?" When June starts talking about how God trusts them to raise their kids in a world filled with love, and how the commanders want a world filled with grief and more suffering, it's over. Serena's eyes fill with tears as she gives up the commander's flight plan that evening, which Lawrence told her earlier. June thanks her and leaves. The soldiers Tuello left stationed at Commander Lawrence's bring him to the Globe, where he reports that the commanders, including Wharton, are planning to bomb Boston. Tuello and June want him to place an altitude-triggered bomb on board the plane the commanders will ride that evening. "I'm an economist. I'm not James Bond," he protests. "If we let them get away, it's over. They win for sure," Tuello says starkly. When Lawrence hesitates, June says she will go with him. At the hangar, June tells Lawrence that courage looks good on you. Then he takes the briefcase and approaches the plane, just as the cars carrying the other commanders pull up. June ducks down behind her car as Wharton and the other idiots show up. They board the plane, but Lawrence hesitates. "Are you with us, Commander?" Wharton wonders, paused at the steps. "After you," Lawrence says, having made his decision. Just before stepping into the aircraft, he peers back into the darkness where June is hiding and places his hand on his chest, a farewell. After Lawrence boards, one more commander drives up. It's Nick. He doesn't see June, who is having feelings of all kinds while crouched next to the sedan, and he pauses at the top of the jet's steps as if he sensed something, but then moves on and enters the plane while June silently cries, in shock, in the corner of the hangar. "Guess you decided to join the winners," Nick says as he sits down next to Lawrence. "What about all of your plans?" Lawrence is on the verge of losing his stuff, but he merely says, "Someone better than I will have to see them through." As the plane begins to taxi, Nick quietly asks, "Is she all right?" And Lawrence knows exactly whom he means. "Can't keep a good woman down," he says. Nick adds that June told him several times to give this all up, and Lawrence responds, "You should have listened to her." June walks out of the hangar to watch the plane take flight. When the explosion comes, we see the light reflected on her face, and then fiery pieces of the wreckage start to fall to the earth. 10th episode begins with Boston free from Gilead occupation. By the time the Marines land in Southie, the fighting is actually nearly over. Gilead has pulled out of the city after 19 days of fighting, but the rest of America is still caught in the tyrannical grip of Gilead. Each state is going to follow a similar trajectory, with Mayday intending to take each by force, ever growing in numbers as more states fall, eventually overthrowing the oppressive regime of Gilead once and for all. Eventually they'll make it to Colorado, where June hopes to be reunited with Hannah. But we're a long way off from that just yet. Gilead are without leaders, given all the high commanders have been killed, but the rebels certainly have plenty they can lean on. One in particular who's really coming into his own is Luke. He's stepped up as a leader, but he's also not sleeping. He has a crazed look in his eye, but also one of determination and purpose. He's juiced, working with the Boston engineers to turn the power back on, envisioning Holly and Nicole flying back over. Then they'll be hitting New York next. Mark speaks to June afterwards and reveals that most of the Western District commanders have been promoted, including Mackenzie. What this means is that Hannah is actually moving closer to where they are, which could give them a lot of hope to get her back home quicker. Serena is also here too, and June thanks her for her part to play in the intel regarding the plane. She does stir the pot a bit when the conversation turns to Nick, bringing up that despite his dishonest life, if Nick really had a choice, he would choose to be with June. Serena doesn't really have anywhere to go here, given she's been denied a passport to the EU and the US, so Mark ships her off to a UN refugee camp for the time being. He does promise to find her, but the last we see of Serena, she's alone with only Noah for company. While in Boston, June finds Emily again and the pair are reunited. She was in Bridgeport this whole time, which happens to have been a hot spot of rebellion for a while. She's been fighting back this whole time, just like June has been, but the latter is starting to lose hope that she'll ever get Hannah back. Emily helps to change her opinion on matters as they walk down by the side of the river together. The guardians have been hung down by the shore, while graffiti on the wall next to it shows the bright sparks of liberation, with people writing their names up as a way of expressing freedom. Mark calls June out in the middle of the night, right over to Millerville, Mass. They're near the old Rhode Island line, which happens to be the new border with Gilead. Two men show and drop Janine off, dumping her on the road where she's reunited with June and the others. Aunt Lydia is here too, alongside Naomi, who gives Charlotte back. While Lydia and Naomi head back into Gilead, there's a nice moment of respect between Lydia and June here. This opens the floodgates for more children being reunited with their parents, including Nicole and June. Not everyone gets their happy endings, though, as Holly sits with her daughter and encourages her to write a book about her escape experience as a way of giving them all hope. This also explains the name of the show, too, and how powerful words can be. Luke manages to get the power back on, and he's moving over to the New York border to fight the good fight. As for June, she's going to work with Mark and get Hannah back no matter what. They agree to meet each other later on down the line. June heads off to check out the old Waterford house, which has been destroyed now and stands as a derelict tombstone over the horrors that took place in the past. Whilst there, she imagines standing with Hannah before getting a voice recorder out and talking about her experience.